and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. The Afghan government says 8 of its soldiers have been killed in a Taliban attack on a checkpost in northern Balkh province. A provincial governor spokesperson said 4 others were injured in the attack in Nahr-e-Shahi district. However, the Taliban claimed to have killed 12 government soldiers and seized a large number of weapons and ammunition. Iran has released British-Iranian aid worker Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe after her 5-year prison sentence for plotting to overthrow the clerical establishment. Her lawyer says she was pardoned by Iran's supreme leader in 2020 but spent last year of her term under house arrest. It was not immediately clear whether she was allowed to leave Iran. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets across Myanmar in one of the biggest days of protest against the military coup. Police fired tear gas and stun grenades to break up the protests in the country's northern Shan region. The latest demonstrations come despite security forces' overnight raids on protest leaders in the main city of Yangon. In Pakistan, the vaccination drive for people aged 60 and above will begin on the 10th of March. The announcement comes 2 days after the country approved China's Sinopharm vaccine for people above 60 years old. Pakistan has so far recorded 13,205 deaths and over 590,000 infections. Globally, there are over 116 million infections and nearly 2.6 million deaths. And in tennis, Hungary's Martin Fucsovics beats Croatian Borna Coric 6-4, 6-1 in the semi-finals of the Rotterdam Open, while Russia's Andrei Rublev defeated Greek star Stefanos Tsitsipas 6-3, 7-6. Fucsovics will clash with Andrei Rublev in the final today. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. The Afghan government says 8 of its soldiers have been killed in a Taliban attack on a checkpost in northern Balkh province. A provincial governor spokesperson said 4 others were injured in the attack in Nahr-e-Shahi district. However, the Taliban claimed to have killed 12 government soldiers in the attack. In a statement, Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said a large number of weapons and ammunition were also recovered. This comes a day after U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad met Taliban leader Abdul Ghani Brother in Doha. They discussed the ways to speed up the Afghan peace process. Earlier, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said he is ready to discuss holding fresh elections to advance talks with the Taliban. In Geneva, a group of human rights defenders has called for a probe into the last year riots in India's capital that left 53 people, mostly Muslims, dead. They also called for an end to hate crimes by Hindu radicals in India. Europe-based human rights defenders gathered in front of the UN office in Geneva earlier this week to expose surging radicalism in India. They were holding posters inscribed with slogans condemning the maltreatment of minorities in India. They said minorities are being subjected to torture under the extremist Hindutva policy. They said the fascist Indian government should immediately release human rights activist Akhil Gogi. In India, another farmer has committed suicide at the Delhi border in protest against the centre's controversial agricultural laws. Nearly 250 growers have died during the anti-farm laws protest since November 26. Police said the victim, who belonged to a northern Haryana state, hung himself from a tree. Meanwhile, the farmer union has announced to continue the protest and strengthen the movement. it said that every village should provide 1 tractor and 15 men for 10 days on a rotation basis. Moreover, a Sikh leader in the UK has called for UN observers to monitor the protest sites and report on abuses on human rights. Iran has released British-Iranian aid worker Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe after her 5-year prison sentence for plotting to overthrow the clerical establishment. Her lawyer said she was pardoned by Iran's supreme leader in 2020 but spent last year of her term under house arrest. It was not immediately clear whether she was allowed to leave Iran. Zaghari was arrested at Tehran airport in April 2016 as she prepared to head back to Britain. Irish Foreign Minister Simon Coveney has urged all stakeholders to come back to negotiating table to revive the 2015 nuclear deal. Following a meeting with President Hassan Rouhani in Tehran, he said Ireland, as a member of the UN Security Council, has a crucial role of facilitator for the deal. Coveney said there is an opportunity to make progress, with the new U.S. administration looking to re-engage with Tehran. Rouhani said Iran is ready to revive the landmark deal if the U.S. lifts economic sanctions. He also urged Washington to abandon what he called its policy of threats and pressure. U.S. President Joe Biden is exploring ways to restore the deal if Tehran resumes strict compliance with its terms. Tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets across Myanmar in one of the biggest days of protest against the military coup. Police fired tear gas and stun grenades to break up the protests in the country's northern Shan region. In Mandalay, activists staged a sit-in protest after 2 minutes of silence to honor the people killed by police and the army. The latest demonstrations come despite security forces' overnight raids on protest leaders in the main city of Yangon. Locals said the forces arrested 3 people for unknown reasons. Meanwhile, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi said Beijing is ready to engage with relevant parties to ease the situation in the country. The Arab coalition says it has destroyed 10 drones launched by Yemen's Houthis to target the southern part of Saudi Arabia. Coalition spokesperson Colonel Turki Al-Maliki says the drones were intercepted before they could cause any damage. He said the coalition has destroyed multiple aircraft that group deliberately launched towards civilians. Al-Maliki said the coalition is working to protect civilians in accordance with international humanitarian laws. Yesterday, the coalition said Houthis conducted 8 such strikes in 24 hours. Houthi strikes against Saudi targets have increased in recent days amid ramped-up international efforts to end the Yemen war. 3 Palestinian fishermen have reportedly been killed in an explosion off the coast of the Gaza Strip. Palestinian media is blaming Israel for the incident. The nature of the explosion is not known yet. In a social media post, Israel's defense forces have denied involvement in the incident. IDF said there were indications that the deaths were caused by an explosion. Early, the Israeli Navy opened fire on Palestinian fishermen sailing off Gaza City, forcing them to return to the shore. Thousands of Israelis hit the streets for 37th consecutive week in protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The nationwide anti-Netanyahu protest kicked off bigger and louder than usual with the elections fast approaching. Protesters rallied outside Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem, calling for his resignation over his ongoing criminal trial. Demonstrators also gathered at some 550 central junctions, squares and bridges across the country. Famed Israeli artists, activists and lecturers also joined the protest in order to show their support. Israel's state media said Prime Minister's supporters attacked demonstrators in Jerusalem. Netanyahu is facing severe public anger over the government's handling of the pandemic in his ongoing trial in court. However, he categorically denies the charges of corruption and fraud leveled against him. Pope Francis had received a warm welcome from residents of the Iraqi town of Karakosh. Francis is visiting the historic cities during his 4-day tour of the country. Waving olive branches, flags, and dressed in traditional robes, hundreds of residents lined the streets to welcome Pope Francis. He visited Iraq's largest Grand Immaculate Church in Karakosh. Earlier, the Pope visited Mosul, where he led a prayer of suffrage for war victims at Hoshe al-Bia. He also met with Kurdish leaders after his arrival in Erbil this morning. The Pope's visit to historical cities aims to boost the morale of the country's small Christian communities. In Senegal, another protester has been killed in clashes with police during the demonstrations against President Macky Sall. At least 5 people have died in protesters sparked by the arrest of Senegal's most prominent opposition leader, Ousmane Sonko. Violent clashes between police and opposition supporters continued in the capital, Dakar, and elsewhere. Military officials said protesters burned down a police station in Diaby while ransacked another 6 across the country. Meanwhile, the opposition coalition has called for 3 days of nationwide protests beginning on Monday. In a statement, the Movement for the Defense of Democracy urged people to massively descend on the streets. Earlier, the 15-nation economic community of West African states called for all parties to exercise restraint. Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Hassan Diab says the country is heading towards chaos as the currency continues to collapse. In a televised speech, Diab threatened to stop working to pressure politicians to form a new government. He urged the politicians to put aside their differences in order to form a government that can attract foreign help. The caretaker premier said the financial and political situation is severely straining the country. Meanwhile, protests against the financial crisis continue in Lebanon as the army tried to maintain law and order in Beirut. Demonstrators blocked various roadways across the country for the 5th day in a row. Diab's cabinet resigned following last year's Beirut port explosion. Mexico has reported nearly 8,800 new coronavirus deaths in a day, while its toll has surged to over 190,000. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2.58 million lives and infected more than 116 million people so far. Details in the following report.
Other than physical damages, the virus has been testing nerves of both public and the government. From protests to resignations, pandemic-related issues have been equally active as the disease itself. In Paraguay, the president has asked all cabinet ministers to resign following clashes at protests against the government's handling of the COVID-19 crisis. In the U.S. Senate, the all-night session saw Democrats battling among themselves over jobless aid and the Republican minority failing to push through some 36 amendments to the relief bill. But finally, Biden was happy that with his coronavirus aid bill, $1,400 payments to most Americans will start to go out this month.
When we took office 45 days ago, I promised the American people that help was on the way. Today, I can say we've taken one more giant step forward in delivering on that promise that help was on the way.
Over in Europe, passengers flying indirectly to Portugal and Britain or Brazil will have to quarantine for 2 weeks upon arrival. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the reopening of the schools to all pupils on Monday will mark the first step back towards normality. Ireland reached the milestone of 500,000 coronavirus jabs administered. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of people in northern France went back into lockdown. French experts say around half of the health workers in the country's care homes do not want to be vaccinated.
This
virus is brutal and the toughness of our sector has shown. The vaccine adds to all this. And today, it's not that we want to say we don't want to get the vaccine, we don't want to protect ourselves or the residents. It's just that we have completely lost trust in the government.
After no new local COVID-19 cases, New Zealand marked a full week of no community transmissions across the country. Neighbouring Australia also had no local COVID-19 cases, making it the 37th day of no infections this year.
In Pakistan, the vaccination drive for people aged 60 and above will begin on the 10th of March. The announcement comes 2 days after the country approved Sinopharm's vaccine for people above 60 years old. Pakistan has so far recorded 1,780 cases overnight, taking the tally to over 590,000 infections. The Health Ministry said more than 559,000 have recovered. At least one passenger has died and 40 others are injured after a train derailed near Pakistan's port city of Karachi. The train was going to Lahore from Karachi when 9 of its bogies derailed near Sangi railway station. Army and Ranger troops, along with engineers, were moved to the incident site immediately for rescue and relief efforts. The timely deployment of troops ensured safety of passengers and their luggage. The injured people have been moved to a hospital where most of them are in critical condition. Officials say the rescue operation has been completed and now officials are working to open the track for trains. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Sri Lanka, Catholic churches are observing Black Sunday, demanding justice for victims of the 2019 Easter attacks. More than 290 people were killed and nearly 500 others were injured in the terror attacks on 3 hotels and as many churches. The church leaders made the protest call, saying the inquiry report failed to name the perpetrators of attacks. Across the country, parishioners of Catholic churches attended Sunday services dressed in black. The Bishops' Conference said the color will signify the community's anger over the failure to ensure justice for the victims. A special prayer in remembrance of the victims was recited after Sunday Mass. The United States and South Korea are set to conduct their springtime joint military exercise this week. However, the drills will be scaled back due to the coronavirus pandemic. South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff said the 9-day computer-simulated command post exercise will begin on Monday. In a statement, he said both sides decided to proceed with the drills after comprehensively considering the COVID-19 situation. He added the exercises are defensive in nature. The drills will not include outdoor maneuvers and the number of troops and equipment will be minimized. Meanwhile, North Korea says it is closely monitoring the combined drills and calls them a rehearsal for war. Over 150 pairs of buffaloes have participated in a traditional annual race in India. The southern Indian coastal city of Mangalore hosted the festival. More in this report.
Kambala is popular among rural masses and generally takes place in wet rice fields. Buffaloes run in the field one by one, and the winning pair of buffaloes is rewarded with a cash prize. However, traditionally, it is a non-competitive sport. The race is usually marked by the end of the harvest season in the region.
There is a matter of prestige more than anything else. It is matter of prestige, it is matter of tradition, it is matter of culture for us. That is why this Kambala is getting this sort of a support.
The rural festival was banned for 3 years after activists petitioned in court against animal cruelty concerns. The ban was lifted in 2017.
In France, a street sweeper is using TikTok to spread the message of cleanliness. The 45-year-old was fed up with people throwing litter on the ground in the COVID-19 pandemic. Details in the following report.
Paris resident Ludovic Francesquet has gone viral after he started using TikTok to urge people to put their litter in the garbage cans. The street sweeper has been posting time-lapse videos of him sweeping up piles of trash. He mixes dancing and heartfelt appeals to call on his fellow Parisians to keep the city clean.
Allez-y.
I made videos as a garbage collector. It got 100 likes. I said, wow, let's try to go further. And then I realized it reaches the young generation. And in my head, it clicked right away. I said, okay, I'll do before and after videos. We'll try to encourage people to do this profession because we are not immortal. I hope there will be people to take over and continue this beautiful work that we do around the world.
The Frenchman's TikTok account has 59,000 followers and around 608,000 likes. He has previously worked as a caregiver for cancer patients and autistic adults, but he says garbage collecting is his true calling.
When I was little and doing grocery shopping with my mother, walking on the streets, I was picking up paper bags from the street, and she would say, "My son, that's disgusting. What are you doing?" And I would say, "I know it's disgusting, but it's important for the planet."
With cafes and diners closed, many people are eating takeaway in public squares, increasing the volume of trash on the streets. But Francesquet is doing his best to clean the streets and is pursuing his dream of making the planet a better place to live in.
Britain has called on the European Union to shake off its ill will and build a good relationship as sovereign equals. In an opinion article, UK's top EU advisor David Frost promised to stand up for the country's interest. Frost defended Britain's extension of a grace period for checks on food products imports to Northern Ireland as being lawful. He said the decision is consistent with the progressive and good faith implementation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. He added Britain will continue discussions with the EU to constructively resolve difficulties arising from the protocol. Both London and Brussels accuse each other of acting in bad faith in relation to the Northern Ireland Protocol. China's exports have grown at a record pace from a year earlier despite the pandemic and Lunar New Year holiday. Customs data showed the exports skyrocketed over 154% in February compared with a year earlier. Moreover, China's foreign trade increased significantly in January and February. China's trade surplus jumped to over $103 billion for the first 2 months. In a statement, the customs said a rebound in foreign demand drove the surge. It said, in addition, a majority of manufacturing employees in China chose to stay put over the Lunar New Year holidays. In tennis, Hungary's Martin Fuchsowicz and Russia's Andrei Rublev will clash in the final of the Rotterdam Open today. The two have a 1-1 head-to-head record, with Rublev winning their last meetup in the French Open in October. Fuchsowicz dominated Croatian Borna Coric 6-4, 6-1 in the semi-final to reach his maiden ATP 500 final. The Hungarian converted all 5 break points he created to topple his rival in just under an hour and a half. Meanwhile, Rublev defeated Greek star Stefanos Tsitsipas 6-3, 7-6 to claim his 9th consecutive ATP 500 level win. Rublev saved all 5 of the break points he faced in the first set and broke Tsitsipas twice. The Russian again dominated in the second set tiebreak, racing to a 4-0 lead before taking it 7-2. Meanwhile, Czech Petra Kvitova beat Spain's Gabin Muguruza 6-2, 6-1 in the final to win her second Qatar Open title in Doha. This is Kvitova's 28th career title and first since 2019. The match was a reprise of 2018 final when Kvitova defeated Muguruza in a 3-set thriller. The Czech broke Muguruza's serve 5 times in a row to seal the first set and take a commanding lead in the second. She only took 1 hour and 7 minutes to down her Spanish rival. The result extends Kvitova's dominance in her rivalry with Muguruza to 5-1. In the main event of mixed martial arts UFC 259, Jan Blachowicz defeated middleweight champion Israel Adesanya via a unanimous decision to retain his heavyweight belt. The event was held in the UFC Apex Arena of Las Vegas in the U.S. state of Nevada. Blachowicz handed Adesanya his first loss ever in UFC, shattering his ambitions of becoming a multiple division champ. In the co-main events, Aljamain Sterling won the bantamweight title after Peter Yan lost by disqualification. Islam Makhachev returned to the octagon to get a spectacular win over Drew Dober via third-round submission. Meanwhile, female featherweight champ Amanda Nunes easily defended her title by submitting Megan Anderson in the first round. In table tennis, Germany's Dmitry Otkarev and Japan's Mima Ito have won their respective singles at the World Table Tennis Contender event in Doha. Otkarev beat his South Korean rival Lin Yoonju 4-1 to take the men's crown. Meanwhile, in women's single, Mima Ito bested compatriot Hina Hiyata 4-2 to lift the title. In men's double, South Korean partners Lee Sang-soo and Cho Dae-song prevailed, while in women's doubles, Japan's Miyu Hirano and Kasumi Ishikawa took the trophy home with a straight game win in the final. In Russia's city of Irkutsk, dog sled and skiing enthusiasts have gathered on the frozen Baikal Lake for a 150-kilometer-long race.
11 teams from various cities of Russia started off in the evening to save the dogs from overheating. The participants of the race are free to decide on their strategy along the way, and there are no checkpoints. They have prepared tents and warm equipment to withstand the freezing night temperatures of -12 Celsius. The organizers of the competition say that humans and dogs coordinate as a team to get through the long race. The BAIKAL race is an annual event held for the 7th time this year. SLED dog racing is a winter sport most popular in the Arctic regions of the United States, Canada, Russia and some European countries.
Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.